All right, 4.5 minutes into recording. Let's fire this bad boy up.
I'm ready.
Sandy, you ready? Don't laugh.
Well, at least I separated you two.
Oh my goodness. But I can see her better. Is the problem.
I'm trying very hard.
I'm just so happy about my
get you a
nose.
ruler so you can.
You should have the ruler.
All right, here we go. Ready?
Okay.
Hey. Welcome to our Real Estate Happy Hour podcast. I'm Dustin Vance. With me is Cathy Anderson and Sandy Frillman. Today we're going to go through the home buying process. Hopefully you'll get some understanding and feel more comfortable when buying a home. The first step I think is the most important is getting a pre-approval. The pre-approval is basically you go with a lender, you fill out some paperwork, you get some information to them, and they will tell you how much buying power you have, what kind of products you qualify for, give you your payment information. That way you can make a smart buying decision. Do you guys have anything to add on that?
No, I agree. I would suggest a local lender. You know, I've got clients that will try to, get a pre-approval from Rocket, and that's easy to do, all online. But at the end of the day, I think we definitely suggest our local lenders.
But isn't though the online sites, they're more of a pre-qualification, not necessarily a pre-approval. That's been my experience. There's a few non-local lenders that tend to go a little bit deeper. If you're not sending in pay stubs and taxes or something like that, they're not pre-approving you. They're taking your word as to what you bring home without verifying income and saying, we think you can buy this amount of house.
Right.
And my experience is there's not a lot of sellers that accept pre-approvals or pre-qualifications from those online lenders because of that.
Right. And the reason for going local, too, is your bank knows you the best. You know, they'll work with you on some of the different loan products because they know your banking. And so that's always a really good suggestion to go local. If you need to do online, be real careful, though, of who you're using. There's a lot of scams out there. You don't want to give your private information to just anybody online. So start with your local. Then if you decide you need to move on because of you're a VA or any of those different things, then go ahead. But start local first. It's always a good suggestion.
Yep.
And many of our local lenders have online applications. So you can start the process there and then be contacted by a loan officer. And so it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Right.
Great. So my next step is selecting a realtor. And obviously...
Go ahead.
What are you raising your hand for? Because they choose you?
Suggest a local. Just volunteering.
You want to go with somebody you trust, somebody you can build a relationship with. Cathy?
I agree. And I think in a small area like ours, everyone knows 5-6 realtors, and it's best to, instead of just because you go to church or know someone from school or whatever, to kind of do a little bit of research and maybe even meet with a couple different realtors and see who you're the best fit with.
Sandy, what qualities make a good realtor?
For me, number one is honesty, truthfulness. I don't want someone to be misled by anything. So I guess one of my big things is when you go into a property and you see some things that you really need to point out to the prospective buyer, and they love the house, but I see something that I don't think is in their best interest. I just can't help myself. I have to point it out. I think negotiating skills is very important. Understanding that you're dealing with two parties, so you do the best you can in representing your buyer so that they come to the conclusion that they want.
So I think I'll add on that. It's really important to have a real strong connection. I think you should interview realtors and kind of decide for yourself. It's great to take recommendations from people you trust, but I also think it's really up to you, and you kind of have to go with your gut a little bit. So,
Absolutely, I agree. Totally.
but I'm out of alcohol, so now we got a problem.
Okay,
Out,
go
out.
for it.
Well, no, I have them
Oh, okay.
upstairs.
Well, is that like what is that?
It's whiskey, yeah. It's so good.
It's a
Wasn't
step
that the
below
gift from your
Scott.
client?
This is
Oh,
a
nice.
buyer gave me
Very
this.
nice.
Nice.
Reserve. Wow.
I don't go. I drink Jefferson's Reserve, but not single barrel. Usually, they have a limited batch, small batch, and they have it's called small batch. That's the one I usually drink. He got me this one. It's really good.
Boy, it's so clear.
It's very good.
Love it. It's just, I mean, there's no residue, nothing.
No.
Love that.
And it's not expensive.
Oh, really?
I'm not drinking expensive stuff.
Wow.
So my third step is home search and starting to actually look for homes. What's one of the first things you think a new home buyer should do?
I suggest looking online, and most buyers are already doing this, but familiarize yourself with what's out there. You know, where is it located? What's the price range? What are the amenities? And then it's nice now because you're actually able to maybe put together a few different homes to see, whereas before, you know, there was maybe one here or there, but now maybe you can get in to see a few homes. I typically don't suggest maybe more than 5 or 6 at a time, or they all kind of run together.
Yeah.
But just get into the houses because they don't necessarily look like they appear online because pictures can be deceptive.
Oh, that's something we get paid really good money to do is
And what's the first thing you hear? Doesn't look anything like the pictures.
Yeah.
And I say to them, yeah, that's our job, is to make it look nice so that you
Yeah.
will want to see the
We
house.
got to get you in that house.
I actually had buyers the other night tell me that the house looked better than the pictures.
Yeah,
Oh, wow. You know
yeah,
that.
I've
The
heard
other way
that too.
around.
Or
Yeah.
bigger. The rooms are
Right.
bigger than they look,
Yeah.
especially bathrooms.
You have to get into a house and get a feel for, okay, what does $200,000
Right.
buy me?
Okay.
Maybe not what I
Right.
thought, you know.
I think having a good wants versus needs is a good place to start, and then you can kind of weigh that with how much you're looking to spend, what your pre-approval set for, what do the houses in that price range have to offer, and start working there. But I agree, get into the house, see how it feels.
Right. Maybe get an idea of condition. You know, what are you willing to do and not do in terms of upgrades? You know, maybe some cosmetic updating is fine, but you don't want to do any more than that. So.
Right. Well, I think first off, many times that price range that buyers tend to start with, once they see what that can buy them, they do reevaluate what price range they want to be in. Many times they end up having to go back to their loan officer and see if they can qualify for a higher price range, and many times they can.
Yeah.
But at first glance, they think, yeah, I really want to be in this area, but it doesn't work out. By the time their repairs are in there, due to that price range, they're no better off than going to the higher price.
Yeah, very true. So my step 4 I have is writing an offer. You've gone through your pre-approval, you've selected a realtor, you've seen some homes, you found one that you absolutely love, or maybe it's one that's going to work for you right now. Now you got to write the offer. So, do you have any tips on that?
This is one of my favorite parts because I'm a paper person. Paperless office though, so. But you know, whether it's in person, which I'm always willing to do, or we've got some wonderful electronic signature software, Dotloop. We can do it all by email, but whichever way. You know, I like to have the offer written ahead of time and then just go through it kind of paragraph by paragraph, page by page with a buyer and make sure they're comfortable with everything.
What are some things that are in the purchase contract that we have to iron out? What are some details that we usually walk through with the home buyer?
Some major things, obviously, the price,
Yep.
how much earnest money you want to put down, whether or not you're going to pay cash or have a loan, what that loan looks like. Are you looking for closing cost assistance? Your time frame of when you want to close, and that's something that you have to really think about. With cash, it closes a lot earlier than loans because of all the paperwork and such. Let me see.
Inspection periods is
yeah.
another good one.
Yeah.
Are you doing inspections or not?
Correct.
Appraisal contingencies.
Right. Personal property that
Right.
you convey.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Patio furniture. I love the patio furniture. Well, we're going to ask to keep it, right? I mean, I tell a lot of buyers, if you like something, we'll ask for it. The
Right.
worst they can tell us is no. And we've been
Right.
told no a lot, There's
Right.
sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's part of the offer, and it actually makes things happen.
Right. And there's a lot of things that are actually that are built in that unfortunately some sellers don't understand that if it's built in, it has to stay with the house. We have to write that in just to make sure that there's an understanding by both sellers and buyers what is going to be included in the property. Simple thing, just as simple as a refrigerator. What type of refrigerator, what kind of refrigerator is there, because sometimes that doesn't end up being the refrigerator that's left.
You absolutely need to make sure you're writing in that stuff. Even though it's in the listing sheet and it's in the house that you're seeing it,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean it stays. You're absolutely right.
Right.
And if that type of fridge is really, really important to you, model number, the make, that's
Right.
what needs to be written in.
And, not making it sound like a seller is trying to pull anything over, but sometimes they don't understand that you can't really do that. The expectation of the buyer is when they saw that very, very nice double-sided French refrigerator, that's what their expectation is when they buy that house.
Yeah, not the beer fridge. It was
Exactly, that was in the
yeah, absolutely.
I think we talked about a lot of the variables that are part of the contract. There's also a lot of standard verbiage, the title work, the warranty deed, the real estate tax proration, the final walkthrough, just a lot of standard verbiage that we'll go through and discuss as well.
No.
But I like the contract because I think it's very thorough.
It is, and I'm kind of like you. I like to, at least the first offer a new buyer puts in, I like to be there and go through it in person with them. Make sure they understand all the ins and outs. For some reason we don't get that house, the next offer we can e-sign because it's just
Right.
the contract's essentially a boilerplate the same. We add the details in as needed. So
And we use state contracts,
Yeah.
which are they're authorized. They've been gone through by lawyers, so it isn't a one page.
no,
It's
Right.
intended to
Yep.
protect everyone, both buyer and seller.
Yep. So one thing I do want to kind of hit on is they're in the inspection period. There's multiple things we're going to inspect for or not, and there's also different ways we can do the inspections. Right, like if I'm going to do a home buyer inspection, I can either say I'm going to ask for repairs or just say nope because of the inspection. There's things that allow me to walk away and void the contract. That's really important for buyers to understand that they have those options.
Right.
So that's going to be once we get the offer accepted, then we're going to go into the next phase, which is actually the inspection process. So the inspection process in my mind is kind of made. It starts in step 4, just because that's when you kind of you're detailing out how the process is going to go. Right. Once you're in the inspection process, that's when you start hiring inspectors and have them sent out to the house. And any good tips on that?
Well, that's something that we always assist with. I mean, we've got a list of home inspectors. We work with, many of them frequently, but we assist with, I want my buyer to select their home inspector, but then I'll work with scheduling it at a time that's convenient for everyone.
And so here in Illinois, it might be a little bit different in Missouri, I think. But can I just have my dad inspect the home? Is that considered okay, or?
You can have the whole family. However, when you're asking for repairs, it has to be a licensed inspector. Has to be a license. So if you just have the refrigerator inspected, you need to have a licensed appliance dealer. You just can't. I mean, you can have anybody you want to inspect, but you just can't ask for repairs based on that.
Gotcha.
And so the typical inspections that we see in our area would be whole home inspection with the inspector that does a very thorough inspection. He may add on a radon test. It's typical in our area. Termite inspection, and then occasionally septic, maybe a well.
Well.
I've only had a couple well inspections.
Possibly
Yeah.
lead base, which we don't see a lot,
Is there anything else?
but it is something.
No, those
Or
are those
mold.
most common. Mold every
Yeah.
once in a great
Yeah.
while. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely
Pool, spa, if
Yeah.
we have a need
Yeah.
for those.
So really, anything that has to do with that house,
Any
you
major
can have
systems,
inspected.
right?
Absolutely.
You can have electrical inspected, but again,
Right.
like you said, it needs to be a licensed electrician, you can have the plumbing inspected. Now, home inspectors are licensed, but they're not necessarily licensed electricians or licensed plumbers.
Right.
They've gone through extensive training and some apprenticeship to allow them to do home inspections.
Right. That's a good point. And
Yeah. Oh, well, I was just going to say, many times the inspectors will actually recommend you get a specialized roof, electrical, plumbing, foundation.
Right. I think they have a general knowledge of all those topics. And then if there's something specific, we dig a little deeper with a specialist.
Right.
So, Sandy, do you recommend getting home inspections? I mean, if I'm walking through and it looks okay, is that good enough, or should I really be? Because I mean, they around here, I think we've noticed that they cost anywhere between $300 and $400. If you go outside of Quincy a little bit, they may get a little more expensive than that, depending on how far the inspector has to travel. So that's a pretty good expense. But I mean, is it really kind of worth it at that point? Or?
Absolutely worth it. I would always recommend it. I don't care what the property is like. It's something that's going to save you in the long run. It may not be something that is devastating to where you have to walk away. It might be something that you just have to prepare for in the future, like a roof or your furnace. Down the road you're going to have to replace, but at least down the road. It's so important, and I recommend it to all my buyers.
I think that's very true. And I always tell buyers too, it's a good way to learn about your house. Where's the water shut off?
Right.
What kind of furnace filter do I need? So, and just like you said, it's a good way to learn what you might need to keep an eye on in the future. Might not be an issue now, but you might want to budget for a new roof, 10 years down the road. So.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So the very last step I've got is closing, right? You get to finally sign the documents, take ownership, and get the keys to your house. What is a typical closing like, Sandy?
Well, there isn't such a thing. Every closing is different. Some go very smoothly, and sometimes not so much. It just depends. Cash is always the easiest. However, you have things come up at the last minute that you don't anticipate. So, as I say that, the process itself is pretty painless. It can take anywhere from 15 to 2 hours, depending on what's involved. Obviously, with the loan, it's a little bit more. And
when you say with what's involved, you mean the paperwork, right? I mean, that's really what you're doing at that point.
Right.
Hopefully, before you get to the closing table, you've already done your final walkthrough. If there's any repairs needed, you've already verified that those are done. This is simply sitting down, whether it's a title center or the bank, and starting to sign some documents. And, transferring deed and things like that.
Because the deed and the title work is already done ahead of time. So the search is done, it's been insured, you're pretty well on your way.
Yep.
And then you give the keys to the buyers and everyone is happy.
And usually it's an opportunity for the buyers and sellers to meet and maybe discuss questions, things about the house.
I've had many times they exchange phone numbers even because the buyers are, especially their first time buyers, they don't know what to ask, they don't know what to look for, and they may have questions later that's easily answered by the sellers. And I've never known a seller that isn't really genuinely happy to provide those answers.
Yeah. Well, they love their house, and so now they want to share that with the buyers. So you're right. Many of them will be. The sellers are more than happy to deal.
They take a lot of pride in the home that they've taken care of for however long. So, so that would conclude the home buying process. Any other things you want to add in there?
I think as a realtor, what I tell buyers is that our role is to dot the I's, cross the T's, watch the transaction every step of the way, and watch the dates, and make sure that it is as stress-free as possible.
I hear that we're considered salespeople, and I really don't really care for that as much. I don't feel like I'm selling anything. I'm like you said, I'm also an intermediary between these two parties, allow things to happen smoothly, and the things that we do, we get to take a little pressure off the buyers in some regards, because you mentioned negotiations before. Some of them aren't comfortable going back and saying, well, because this and this and this, we would like this fixed, or whatever. That's where we come in. That's where we
Right.
get to go
Right.
talk to the, if they have an agent, we go talk to the other agent and say, hey, this is what we're looking at. This is why we need these repairs. And it usually goes pretty smooth, right? I'm not saying you always get everything you ask for, but there's usually a time when, if it makes sense, most sellers are pretty reasonable and they understand that,
Right.
we knew that needed fixed, but we'll go ahead and take care of that. Or
I like to see a win-win.
Absolutely.
There's no reason not to have a win-win. Sellers want to sell and the buyers want to buy.
Right.
So as long as everyone keeps that in mind, it will go smoothly.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that concludes this episode, I guess. Any parting thoughts from anybody?
Buy and sell. So we've seen a decline, which is not traditional for our market. But again, the market hasn't been traditional at all.